YouTube friends, welcome to my channel. This is Rai Rai with my travel buddy Alan, and we're on our way to Washington DC. So stay tuned, but don't forget to subscribe.
We're on our way to the capital of United States of America, the Washington DC, formerly the District of Columbia, also known as just Washington or just DC. It is a compact city located on the east bank of the Potomac River, bordering on the southwestern and southern the U.S. state of Virginia, and shares a land border with the U.S. state of Maryland on its remaining sides. The city was named for George Washington, a founding father and the first president of the United States, and the federal district is named after Columbia, a female personification of the nation. As the seat of the U.S. federal government and several international organizations, the city is an important world political capital. It is one of the most visited cities here in the United States. It's defined by imposing neoclassical monuments and buildings, including the iconic ones that house the federal government's three branches: the Capitol, White House, and Supreme Court. It's also home to the iconic museums and performing arts venues, such as the Kennedy Center. One of the most visited places by tourists in Washington, D.C. is the Washington Memorial. It is a place where the nation comes to remember and where history is made. As America's front yard, the National Memorial Park is home to many of our country's most iconic memorials, telling the story of people and events that shape us as a nation. Each year, millions of people come to recreate, commemorate presidential legacies, honor our veterans, and make their voices heard. Today, we will visit the monuments and memorials of some famous people that made history here in the United States. First in line is the Thomas Jefferson Memorial.
Hey, good morning.
This is the Jefferson Memorial. In front of the Jefferson Memorial is the Tidal Basin, where rows of cherry blossoms will be seen especially this spring season. From afar, you can see the Washington Monument. The Jefferson Memorial Building is a circular, open-air structure featuring a shallow dome supported by a circular colonnade composed of 26 Ionic columns. An additional 12 columns support the north portico, and 4 columns stand in each of the memorial's 4 openings.
Hello, we're now here in Jefferson Memorial.
Hi.
Back. So this is Rai Rai and this is Alan.
Hello,
Look at the
hello.
Jefferson Memorial. Let me show you the surroundings.
Go down those stairs.
That water that you've seen, that is the Tidal Basin. Let's explore the Jefferson Memorial.
The memorial is constructed of white imperial Danby marble from Vermont, and it rests upon a series of granite and marble step terraces. A flight of granite and marble stairs and platforms, flanked by granite buttresses, lead up from the tidal basin. Rudolph Evans' bronze statue of Jefferson stands centered in the chamber on a black Minnesota granite pedestal, which is inscribed with the dates of Jefferson's birth and death, 1743 to 1826. The statue depicts Jefferson in midlife holding the Declaration of Independence in his left hand. Four quotations from Jefferson's writings were carved into the walls of the memorial chamber. An excerpt from the Declaration of Independence, the document for which Jefferson is best known, is located on the southwest wall. The southeast wall features a statement on the evolution of law and the Constitution, which was taken from a letter written to Samuel Kercheval in 1816. The northwest wall is inscribed with a combination of 6 quotations taken primarily from Jefferson's 1786 Notes of Virginia and Summary Views, which illustrate his beliefs in the evils of slavery and the need to educate the masses. The northeast wall contains a quote from the Act of Religious Freedom, which was adopted in 1779 and eliminated the State Church of Virginia. This quote expresses Jefferson's views on freedom of religion. A fifth quote is engraved on the frieze encircling the memorial's interior. This quote, "I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of men," is taken from the 1800 letter from Jefferson to Benjamin Ross. Once the site for the Jefferson Memorial was chosen, there was never any question about its visual relationship with the White House, a direct line. In fact, President Roosevelt ordered trees to be cut so that the view of the memorial from the White House would be enhanced. As the National Park Service managed most of the land in the viewshed from the Jefferson Memorial to the White House, the commanding view from the memorial across the tidal basin to the Washington Monument and White House remains largely unchanged. From Thomas Jefferson Memorial, we will now proceed to Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial. Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial is a presidential memorial in Washington, D.C., dedicated to the memory of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, and to the era he represents. The memorial is the second of 2 that have been constructed in Washington to commemorate that president. Dedicated on May 2, 1997 by President Bill Clinton, the National Memorial spread over 7.5 acres adjacent to the southwest side of the tidal basin along the Cherry Tree Walk in West Potomac Park, traces 12 years of the history of the United States through a sequence of 4 outdoor rooms, one for each of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's term of office. Sculptures inspired by photographs depicts the 32nd president alongside his dog Fala. Other sculptures depict scenes from the Great Depression, such as listening to a Far Side chat on the radio and waiting in a bread line, a bronze sculpture by George Segal, a bronze statue of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt standing before the United Nations emblem honors her dedication to the UN. It is the only presidential memorial to depict a First Lady. This is the statue of Franklin Delano Roosevelt in a chair with a cloak obscuring the chair, showing him as he appeared to the public during his life. Together in his statue is his dog Fala. various inscriptions were displayed in this memorial, but one of my favorite is this one. I hate war. The memorial's design concept of 4 outdoor rooms and gardens is animated by water, stone, and sculpture. Running water is an important physical and metaphoric component of the memorial. But since we visited in cold season, the small man-made waterfalls were temporarily off. Considering Roosevelt's disability, the memorial's designers intended to create a memorial that will be accessible to those with various physical impairments. Among other features, the memorial includes an area with tactile reliefs with braille writing for people who are blind. This is the wall showing the statues of the Breadline and the Great Depression. These statues commemorates the popular lexicon in the 1880s. It was during those years that a noteworthy bakery in New York City's Greenwich Village instituted a policy of distributing unsold baked goods to the poor and unemployed at the end of their business day. By the late 19th century, soup kitchens were to be found in several U.S. cities. The concept of soup kitchens hit the mainstream of United States consciousness during the Great Depression. The Great Depression was the worst economic downturn in the history of the industrialized world, lasting from 1929 to 1939. From Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, we will now proceed to the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. The Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial is a national memorial located in West Potomac Park, next to the National Mall in Washington, D.C. It covers 4 acres and includes the Stone of Hope, a granite statue of civil rights movement leader Martin Luther King Jr., carved by sculptor Lei Yixin. The inspiration for the memorial design is a line from King's I Have a Dream speech. Out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. The memorial opened to the public on August 22, 2011, after more than 2 decades of planning, fundraising, and construction. On the inscription wall, there are 14 quotes from King's speeches, sermons, and writings. Each side of the Stone of Hope includes an additional statement attributed to King. The first, from the I Have a Dream speech, and the words on the other side of the stone used to read, I was a drum major for Justice, Peace, and Righteousness, which is a far-appraised version of a longer quote by King. According to the official National Park Service brochure for the memorial, the inscriptions that were chosen stress 4 primary messages of Dr. King: justice, democracy, hope, and love. From Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, we will now proceed to the Korean War Veterans Memorial. The Korean War Veterans Memorial is located in Washington, D.C.'s West Potomac Park, southeast of the Lincoln Memorial and just south of the reflecting pool on the National Mall. It memorializes those who served in the Korean War. The main memorial is in a form of a triangle intersecting a circle. The wall is 164 feet long, 8 inches thick, and more than 100 tons of highly polished Academy Black granite from California, more than 2,500 photographic archival images representing the land, sea, and air troops who supported those who fought in the war was sandblasted onto the wall. The mural was created by Louis Nelson, with photographic images sandblasted into it, depicting soldiers, equipment, and people involved in the war. When reflected on the wall, there appear to be 38 soldiers, 38 months, and it is also representing the 38th parallel that separated the North and South Korea. To the north of the statues and path is the United Nations Wall, a low wall listing the 22 members of the United Nations that contributed troops or medical support to the war effort. We're now on our way to our next destination, the Lincoln Memorial. The Lincoln Memorial is a U.S. national memorial built to honor the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. It is on the western end of the National Mall in Washington, D.C., across from the Washington Monument, and is in a form of a neoclassical temple. The memorial's architect was Henry Bacon. The exterior of the memorial echoes a classic Greek temple and features Yule marble quarried from Colorado. It is surrounded by a peristyle of 36 fluted Doric columns and 2 columns in antis at the entrance behind the colonnade. Above the colonnade, inscribed on the frieze, are the names of the 36 states in the Union at the time of Lincoln's death and the dates in which they entered the Union. Their names are separated by double-wreath medallions in bas relief. Above on the attic frieze are inscribed the names of the 48 states present at the time of the memorial's dedication. A bit higher is a garland joined by ribbons and palm leaves, supported by the wings of eagles. In front of Lincoln Memorial is a long reflecting pool all the way to the World War II Memorial, also facing the Washington Monument, and if you go further, you'll see the Washington Capitol building. Good morning. We're still here in Washington Memorial, and this time we are in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Memorial of Lincoln. Alan, say hi.
Hi.
And right in front of the Lincoln Memorial, you're gonna see that Washington Capitol. And that is what they call the pencil. At the back of it is the Washington Capitol, which we're gonna cover in a different video. So for now, we're gonna explore this Lincoln Memorial. Stay tuned. The Lincoln Memorial has always been a major tourist attraction, and since the 1930s has sometimes been a symbolic center focused on race relations. The memorial has been the site of many famous speeches, including Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, delivered on August 28, 1963, during the rally at the end of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. The memorial's interior is divided into 3 chambers by 2 rows of 4 Ionic columns, each 50 feet tall and 5 feet across at their base. The central chamber housing the statue of Lincoln is 60 feet wide, 74 feet deep, and 60 feet high. The north and south chambers display carved inscriptions of Lincoln's second inaugural address and his Gettysburg Address. The memorial is replete with symbolic elements. The 36 columns represents the states of the Union at the time of Lincoln's death. The 48-stone freestone above the columns represent the 48 states in 1922. Inside, each inscription is surmounted by a 60 by 12-foot mural by Jules Guerin, portraying principles seen as evident in Lincoln's life: freedom, liberty, morality, justice, and the law on the south wall, unity, fraternity, and charity on the north. On the left lower side before entering the monument, you'll see a small museum showcasing the Lincoln legacy. On the entrance display is a big coin showing its back part where the Lincoln Memorial is depicted. Inside this museum shows Lincoln's speeches about equality, freedom and emancipation, and union. At the back part, you'll see pictures during the dedication of the monument, historical events held on the memorial, and during the construction of the memorial. Abraham Lincoln Memorial, we'll now proceed to our last destination, the World War II Memorial. The World War II Memorial is a memorial of national significance dedicated to Americans who served the armed forces and civilians during World War II. Consisting of 56 pillars representing U.S. states and territories, and a pair of small triumphal arches for the Atlantic and Pacific theaters, surrounding an oval plaza and fountain, it sits on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., on the former site of the Rainbow Pool at the eastern end of the Reflecting Pool, between the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument. Its initial design was submitted by Austrian-American architect Frederick St. Florian. The center of this memorial is originally with a water fountain, but since it is still called season, the water fountain is temporarily off. On approaching the semicircle from the east, a visitor walks along one of two walls, right side wall and left side wall, picturing scenes of the war experience in bas relief. As one approaches on the left towards the Pacific Arc, the scenes begin with soon-to-be servicemen getting physical exams, taking the oath, and being issued military gear. The reliefs progress through the several iconic scenes including combat and burying the dead, ending in a homecoming scene. This will end our visit to the Washington Memorials. We will cover soon the Washington Monument and Capitol in a separate video. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like, leave a comment, subscribe, share, and hit on the notification bell for more updates. Thank you and bye-bye!